Hello, hello, and welcome. I'm Charisse, your host, and this is Reverend DeeAnne Hope, and we are so blessed and grateful that she's here. She is a thought leader in spiritual and business development whose mission is to elevate how we think and live. And from experiencing a life of chronic illness and 2 near-death experiences, Rose rebounded with 20 years of health education and personal development, allowing for a very successful career in facilitating. She's currently the owner of Rose Hope Inc., where she helps those who are seeking heaven on earth, which I love, by teaching them how to use their gifts of intuition and master their mind. She's spoken at Harvard University, appeared on ABC, NBC, Global Television, and CTV, and has been recognized as a visionary and business leader, having been nominated for numerous awards, including Alberta Business of Distinction. You and I need to talk because I'm in Edmonton. Rose also hosts the podcast When Spirits Call, and will be releasing her fantasy fiction novel, The Ark, sometime this year. Along with being an entrepreneur, Rose is the mom to 2 bright kids, a publisher, a popular speaker, and an international best-selling author who uses her heart and her head to guide others to create their heaven on earth. And we are so glad that you are here. I will let you now take it away. Thank you for letting me introduce you. And I'm looking forward to this talk. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Charisse. Thank you for putting this together. Isn't this so wonderful, everyone? I'm just loving the space to talk about spirit. This is my jam. This is what I live for. So I'm so happy to be with all of you. And today we're going to be talking about how to create your heaven on earth. This was something that I had been striving for my whole life. And I'm going to tell you my little backstory so you can get to know me a little bit and understand why I'm so passionate about talking about spirit and how to create our heaven here on earth. So my first experience with death happened when I was 5 years old. I was eating one of those round, hard jawbreaker candies. Do you guys remember those round candies? And I was walking around my house with this big thing in my mouth. And my dad said, "DeeAnne, go sit down before you choke." And I went to go and sit down, and sure enough, I took a breath in and I choked. So my dad came running over, wrapped his arms around me, started doing the Heimlich maneuver, and that jawbreaker would not budge. So I went limp in my dad's arms. And in that moment, I had an out-of-body experience. I was hovering above my dad, watching him frantically trying to get this candy out of my mouth. My mom was running for the phone to call for help. My older sister was peeking around the corner. But I felt total peace. I felt so much bliss. I felt so much love. And so none of what was happening below was impacting me. I just knew I was safe and I was okay. My dad did something you're not supposed to do. He actually used his thumb. He shoved it and pushed against the side of my throat, and he was able to get the jawbreaker out and get me breathing again. So I often say my dad gave me life not once, but twice. And so I remember rushing back into my body. I remember my throat being so sore. My skin had burst all the blood vessels, so my whole face was black and blue with all the broken blood vessels in it. And it took a couple days, a couple weeks for those physical impacts to reside, but something inside of me had shifted. I became so hyper aware of energy. My intuition became very much a key player in my mind, in my spirit. And I felt so out of place. I felt like I was in this world, but I didn't know if I belonged anymore. And I thought maybe God had made a mistake in letting me stay. But I thought, well, if he has made a mistake, at least I can prove myself. And so that's what I started to do. I started to prove myself. By the time I was 9 years old, I had started the Kids for Saving Earth Club, and I was the president of that club. By the time I was in my teens, I was an overachiever on every student council, and I was determined that I was going to save lives like my dad. And so by the time I was 18, I was already an EMT and working on an ambulance. In that career, though, I felt really weird, because sometimes I would feel like spirits would come home with me and I didn't understand. So here I was trying to make sense of the world, trying to prove my worth, that I should be here, that, you know, that God or creator, whatever you use to define source energy, had not made a mistake. And so I lived in this place of trying to do all the things that I thought I was supposed to do, trying to do right by God or right by my parents and prove my worth, that it was not a mistake, that I had this second chance at life. The other thing that was going on for me was that I was so deeply wanting to get to that peace and that joy and that love that I felt when I was 5. And I couldn't find it in the physical world. I was trying this relationship and that relationship, and I was struggling to find it. And so even though I had a lot of great success in my early career, in my early life, I still felt really, really discontent. And so, as the universe always provides us with everything that we need, I had a second near death when I was 26. By this time, I had already experienced a divorce. I had already experienced a great deal of traumas in my life. And so this second near death comes along. Now, this one was very different from my first. This time I was recovering at home from a knee surgery that I had. And it was quite an intense, it was a total reconstruction of one of on my left knee. And I was recovering at home, but something went wrong. And as I was on crutches trying to make my way from the kitchen to my bed in the living room, I started to see spots and I started to feel the world spin. And I went completely unresponsive. Thankfully, my brother-in-law was with me at the time. He lived with me and he was tending to me a little bit in my recovery. And so he had caught me and he had guided me to the floor. But I want to tell you about that experience because it was so incredibly profound for me. I witnessed what I can only describe as angels. These beautiful orbs of light energy, these beautiful colors, more vibrant than I had ever witnessed in my real life. These colors were so incredible. And I felt that energy of pure love, much like I did when I was 5. But this time, these angels, these energies were now communicating with me. And even though they weren't speaking my language, I understood them. And I felt their beautiful, unconditional love. I felt heaven. I felt the joy. I felt the peace. Everything that I thought heaven would be, I found it in this place. And I was ready to stay. I thought, that's it. I'm ready. Here I am. And as in many near deaths, the angel said, you still have work to do. You're still not done yet. And so I awoke. I awoke with my brother-in-law looking over me. He helped me to get back to my bed and kind of get reset up and all of those things. And I didn't know how to tell him what had just happened. Surely he would think I had lost my mind, right? Surely he would think I was crazy. So I didn't say anything right away. But in the days to follow, this experience was so compelling. It was like I couldn't hold it in. And so a girlfriend had come over to visit. And as I'm telling her the story about the angels that I had felt and the experience that I had, my brother-in-law had overheard and he came running into the kitchen and he slammed his hand on the counter and he said, I knew it. I felt the angels too. That was a game changer for me because it validated my experience. And for whatever reason, I needed that validation so that I knew that I wasn't losing my mind and I knew I wasn't crazy. And it was in that moment, and I get goosebumps every time. Do you guys have goosebumps? I've got goosebumps. I get goosebumps talking about it because it was so profound for me that he had also experienced something. You see, because while I was unresponsive, he was panicking. He couldn't tell if I had a pulse. He was worried. He was about to call 911. And he also felt an energy. These energies come into the room. And it was like they told him she's going to be okay. And he said within seconds of him knowing that or him receiving that insight, he said, I awoke with a smile on my face. And so I know that this is a story that I need to keep sharing with the world. Angels are real. Heaven is real. It is there for us to experience. And so I learned some valuable lessons along that way. Now, some people say, well, after that second near death, you must have been enlightened. You must have been awake. Well, it took me a while. Okay. And by the way, you do not have to self-induce a near-death experience to walk the journey inward. I want to be very clear on that. You don't have to do what I did. We can choose the path. And this opportunity for me to deepen my understanding of finding heaven was part of my mission work. And so after that second near death, I thought, okay, I'm really going to create heaven now. I'm taking this seriously. I'm going to manifest heaven. And so I did everything outside of myself. I started another company over here, and I started helping these people, and I started a non-for-profit, and I started writing books, and I started doing all these things that surely would bring heaven to the surface for me. And although some of the things I were doing were quite heavenly, I still felt discontent. And then on top of feeling discontent, then I would feel guilty and shameful that how could I not be happy? I have this incredible life that I've created, and how am I still not happy? And this doesn't make any sense. And then I would feel guilt ridden by that. And so I went into a deep space of despair after I had my second child, because I thought, well, having children will then also bring more heaven into my world. So after I had my second child, I didn't know it at the time, but I was experiencing deep postpartum depression. And I was getting to a point where I was like, I'm checking out. Heaven's not here. I can't find it here. I've gone to the ends of the earth. I've done everything I can possibly think of that I'm supposed to do to find heaven, and it's not here. There's no way it's here. And so in a night of despair, as tears flowed down my face, I said, okay, God, you either need to show me the way or I'm leaving this place. And it makes me feel emotional talking about it because it was such a vulnerable place for me. How could I think of leaving my children? How could I think of leaving this world where you have this wonderful life? But I was in so much turmoil. I was being tortured by myself in doing all of this stuff outside of myself, thinking that was going to get me to heaven. And Creator pointed towards my soul. And there began the journey of going inside of myself, of going inside of my soul, of getting to know who I was, remembering who I was. I had forgotten. And I was so disconnected from self, but yet so connected to this world around me. Can anyone relate to that? Where we think we're doing all the right things and then still feeling unhappy and miserable, and then carrying the guilt and shame of that on top of it? It's not a fun place to be. And so as I started to walk with my soul, I started to uncover that all of these things that I was gifted with as a child, my intuition, my sensitivities, they weren't curses after all. They were gifts. And if I got to know them and I got to practice them and I got to befriend all of these wonderful treasures I had inside of myself, oh my gosh, maybe then I would find heaven. You see, here's the thing. Heaven is not outside of us. Heaven exists in the present moment, but it is found within us. We must exude that energy of heaven within ourselves in order for it to be reflected back. It doesn't work the other way around. I can't create heaven out here in order to create it in here. And in order for us to feel that fulfillment, to feel that unconditional love, we have to find it within ourselves first. And you might wonder, okay, well, what's that process look like? How do I go on this journey with my soul? And it begins by saying, hi, soul, I see you, and I'm ready to build a relationship with you. You see, we forget that we are multidimensional beings, right? We have these different aspects to us. In metaphysics, we call it the true self and the false self. The false self is that ego mind, that logical mind, but that ego mind that has all these limited beliefs that says, Oh, you can't go and do a talk. You don't know what you're talking about. Or the ego mind that says, oh, you better make sure you don't spend that money on the thing that you really, really would love because, right? The ego mind does keep us in check, but over time, that ego mind has hijacked us. It's taken over us. And so we have forgotten that the true self is like sitting over here saying, but what about me? I'm over here. I want to talk to you. Right? And so we have this beautiful opportunity for us to befriend these aspects of ourselves. So I even befriend the ego mind. My ego mind, her name is Jane. I've given her a name and I encourage you to do the same. I got a girlfriend, she calls hers the itty bitty shitty committee. I mean, you call your ego whatever you wish, but befriend it nonetheless. Recognize you are not your ego. You are not those thoughts. But in fact, there is a true self that has thoughts that are of a higher level, of a higher power, that have gifts beyond your imagination. I'm talking our clairvoyant gifts to see, our telepathic gifts to be able to hear and to sense information. All of those gifts come from the higher mind. I call it my God mind or my divine mind. That is the true self of me. And so I've allowed myself to become the observer. So then there's the observer self. Be the witness. And I witness myself in different situations. And then I talk to the ego and I talk to my higher self. My higher self, her name is Rose, by the way. All my books that I do, my public speaking is under Reverend Rose Hope, which is why you heard Charisse introduce me as Reverend Rose, or Reverend DeeAnne, and then Hope. Sometimes it gets confusing. My birth name is DeeAnne, but my higher self, her name is Rose. And so I acknowledge her as part of me and the higher part of me. And so I just remind you to start building those relationships. Now, I want to take things even deeper than that today. And I want to share with you the 3 keys that I have learned that have changed everything for me. And they've allowed me to step into this space of creation within myself, of creating heaven inside of myself. Because once you've got it inside of yourself, guess what? It shows up everywhere. There's beauty in everything. We get to receive the magic and the miracles of each and every day when we can tune into it within ourselves. And so I want to begin with this first lesson. This first one is that you have divine right there. God is within you. You come from God. You come from source. Again, use whatever words resonate for you. If God doesn't resonate, that's okay. Pick another word. My friend Glenda Lane, she calls it Gus, God, universe, and source. So she calls hers Gus. Whatever you want to call that God, that divine within you. Recognizing it is not out here. For me, I was raised Catholic, so I always thought God was this man in the sky. And I still reference God as a he. However, God is whatever and whatever we need God to be, whatever serves our highest good. And so allowing yourself to deepen that connection, recognizing that your high self, that you in fact are divine. And this was hard for me at first because I thought, no, God can't be in me. You know, my ego wanted to come in and say, you can't claim that God is within you. Well, we are extension of divine. Just like I have my parents in me. I have divine in me. And this is our true self, our God mind, our divine mind. We all have it. There is no one who is free of the God mind. We all have it. And our opportunity is to choose it, to lean into that God mind, to lean in and start deepening a relationship with that aspect of yourself. One of the things that I like to do just to practice that, because some people say, well, yeah, and how do you really anchor into that? How do you really step into letting God be a constant and recognizing it within yourself? I wake up with divine in the morning. I say, oh, good morning, divine. I know you're waking up with me. I know that you're going to carry me through the day. And in doing so, I allow God to be my doer as well. And so I have this saying, divine is my doer. Divine is my doer. Divine is speaking for me right now. I'm not depleting DeeAnne's resources. I'm tapping into the infinite resource of divine, and divine is doing the work for me right now. Divine is the doer. This helped me so much because I carried the burdens of proving my worth. As I said, I was the doer, right? Achiever, go out, get this title, do this, get this degree. I've got so many degrees and diplomas and certificates, I don't even remember how many I have anymore, because I thought that was what I needed to do to earn my worth. Our worthiness is already given simply because we are an aspect of the divine. And divine's love is unconditional for us. And so when we access, divine is the doer, divine is the doer, it takes this huge burden off of us. Yes, that burden of feeling like we have to do all the things, it goes away. The other lesson that I learned is that not only is divine the doer, and not only is divine within me, but divine is my supply. Divine is my supply. Divine is my supply. The money that I receive from clients doesn't come from clients. It comes from divine. When you feel like you are down and out, invoice God. Tell God you're sending an invoice. I'm going to invoice you for this. See what happens. Divine is your supply. And if you think about it, if you think about your life, chances are divine has been carrying you through and supplying you with everything you need. One of my quotes is, in every given moment, you have everything you need and then some. In every given moment, you have everything you need and then some. And when we start to believe that, that's when all the magic shows up. That's when all this extrinsic stuff shows up. I think about it as filling the soul bank. You know, when we fill the soul bank, the money bank fills, the material bank fills once you fill the soul bank. And there's another piece I want to add to this mix, because this is a really important one in terms of co-creation. You are a co-creator. You were given the power of free will. And so all you need to do is choose what it is that you want. And yes, I mean choosing the life that you want, choosing how you can serve this world, consciously choosing, allowing yourself, as Michael Bernard Beckwith would say, participate in the unfolding of life. You get to be a participant. You get to co-create alongside a divine creator. You were given a paintbrush. Choose your colors. Choose your design. It is really up to you. Now, I want to share just this little story to kind of drive things home a little bit. And it's a fun little story about cows and buffalo. I'm from Alberta, Canada. And so we have bison just down the street. We've got the buffalo and we've got lots of fields of cows. And so I feel like this story is very well suited. Some of you might have heard this story before, but it's a story in the difference between cows and the bison. Because I know for myself, I did everything that I could to resist the journey inward. I mean, if you're here, chances are you're already starting to lean into your truth, into your soul, into your own discovery. But I want to share this with you because it shows up a lot in our lives when we get caught up in challenge, when we got caught up in obstacles, or when we face experiences that we maybe don't want to be facing. And so it starts with the cows out grazing in the field, and the cows are having a great old time eating their grass. And in the distance, they begin to see that there's a storm cloud coming, and the storm cloud is getting darker and darker and more ominous. And the clouds are kind of wondering, I don't really like the look of that. I don't really like the look of that. It doesn't look good. So I think we're going to start our journey away from that cloud. We're going to start leaving. So the cows, they start running from the storm, thinking that they're saving themselves and they're running from the storm, but eventually the storm catches up to them. And now what's happening? They run with the storm. And so the cows are now in the storm so much longer. They have to go through so much more difficulty because now they're running with the storm. Now the bison are in another field, and they're doing their thing, eating their grass, whatever they're doing, and they see the storm. And instead of running in the other direction, those buffalo, those bison, they put their heads down and they face into the storm. They walk into that storm. And eventually, the storm moved past them, and much more quickly than usual, because they've been moving through the storm. They've been facing the storm. And so you see, the moral of the story is don't be the cow, be the bison. But the point of this is that we have things that show up in our lives where we resist. We think, oh, I don't want to go there. I'm just going to keep running from that. I'm going to turn my back. I'm just going to keep running from that. And that was me. I was the cow running from my soul, because the soul looked like a storm to me. It looked ominous. I didn't know what was in there. What pains would I uncover and have to work through? What shadow aspects of myself would I have to witness? But I know from experience, it is so worth being the bison, to head into that storm, to take those steps and to do that work. That is where the magic is. And because of that, I get to move through life experiences in such a way that allows me to not get stuck on the hamster wheel and the overthinking and the suffering that oftentimes I was creating for myself, but rather I was able to see an experience and to recognize that it wasn't meant to cause me suffering. It was meant to help me grow and to learn something valuable. All of our experiences that we have here in this world, they're all for us to receive value in. They're all for us to evolve or to grow within. In mysticism, we call it continual expectancy. And continual expectancy doesn't mean that we expect a specific outcome, but rather continual expectancy means that whatever it is that does happen, whatever it is that does show up, is exactly what was needed for our highest good. And once we can start to anchor that into our subconscious and we know that to be true, then we start to receive even more of that value. Then we start to move through these experiences with a bit more grace and more ease. How are you guys doing out there? You guys picking up what I'm putting down? Some of it's starting to land, I hope. So I want to finish with just a little fun story. And I have lots of fun stories, but this one is one of my favorites. My parents, they often joke that I have 9 lives. I think I only have a few left though. So I hope less adventurous stuff happens. But I've been on a plane that's actually caught on fire and exploded in midair, believe it or not. Yes, that is a true story. But this one in particular that I want to share with you was another one of those, oh my gosh, this could be it kind of experiences. So I used to have a property down in Mexico with my partner. And so we would go down there, and it was not in a touristy area. We lived in a little village. It was a place called Mulahay, and not a lot of tourists. It's very isolated. And one day we hear from a local that, oh, there's this beach not very far with all of these shells on it, like shells of all different shapes and sizes. So this local draws us a nice little map, and we're going on an adventure. So we head out on this adventure, and we really don't know where we're going. We're kind of guessing by this little map. And we find this village, and then we find this road that doesn't really look like a road, but it's kind of a road. So we're going to try it. And it's sand. It is plus 42 degrees Celsius, by the way, for those of you not in Canada or in the States. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but plus 42 degrees Celsius, especially for us Canadians, is hot. And it was stifling hot that day, like almost takes your breath away when you like step out of air conditioning. So we eventually find our way to this beach. It is 20 miles minimum from the nearest village, in which there's probably only a couple of little shacks and things like that. It is through like mountainous, sandy kind of desert terrain. So we get to this beach, we park, we go collect our shells. It's so hot, so we jump in the ocean to cool off and jump back in the truck to leave. And when we go to leave, we are stuck. The tires are spinning. And the harder we try, the deeper we sink. There is not a person in sight. We have not seen a single person in over that 20 miles since getting onto this beach. We're in the middle of nowhere. I grab our phones, no service. Okay, DeeAnne, don't panic, don't panic. But in my head, panic is going on. Fear, that ego mind is coming in. And of course, I watched Narcos Mexico the whole flight down. So in my mind, the cartel is going to find us and bury us in the desert. That's where my mind was going. Not to mind you that walking 20 miles in plus 42 with very little water, no supplies, was not good. It was not good. It was a very serious situation, in fact. And so panic is rising up in me, and my partner's panicking, and he's doing everything he can to get us unstuck. And I take a moment to just take a breath. And as I took that breath, I heard the words, start walking. Start walking. Who said that? Where'd that come from? And so I thought, maybe I should listen to this. So I grabbed what little water we had, a towel, kind of the little things that we had. And I said to my partner, Dan, I said, I'm going to start walking. I don't know why, but I need to start walking. And he said, okay, I'll catch up to you. No worries. I'm going to just try a couple more things. But I start walking. And as I start walking, I'm saying, okay, angels, I need your help about now. Like any time would be good. I'm feeling scared. Dan is scared. We don't know how we're going to make it back to the village. There's nobody out here. Like, what are we going to do? And within a few minutes, my partner Dan catches up to me, runs his way towards me. And as we turn around a corner, over the horizon comes a white 1-ton dually pickup truck with a winch on the front. Now, if you've been to Mexico, these are few and far between, I must say. But the chance that a white big pickup truck with a winch to pull us out on the front came rolling down that road. I tell you, I thought I was hallucinating. I said, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Like, this can't even be real, right? And sure enough, the man was like, what are you guys doing out here? Nobody's out here. I just happened to, be running by or whatever. He got us unstuck. Obviously, he saved the day. But had I not paused to tune into my high mind, to that intuition, I might have not heard the words start walking, and we would have indeed missed that truck. So that is to remind you of the power that comes when we start to nurture this relationship, when we start to befriend these aspects of our being, when we start to recognize heaven on earth was innately given to us. It's just that it's clouded by all of this extrinsic, all of this limited beliefs, all of this conditioning that we have endured. But heaven is here for us. And it requires you to walk that inward journey. And once you start doing that, heaven will appear. I promise you that. So we do have a special gift for all of you, and that's going to be put up on the screen here any minute. And there is a link that you're going to want to click on. And that link is going to take you to my booking room. Now, I am booking out a couple months. I apologize that there's a little bit of a wait, but I promise it will be worth it. So I specialize in something called the Akashic Records. This is your soul's library. I've been doing this intuitive work now for over a decade. And so along with being a metaphysical reverend and having done a great deal of research around our spirituality and that connection, I'm an intuitive, clairvoyant, medium, psychic, whatever you want to add to the list. And I love sharing it with people. And so this is a gift for you for a complimentary session with me into your soul's library. This is one of the best steps that you can take to deepen that journey, to strengthen that bond, to build that relationship. And so that link is there for you. You can grab it and take it with you and get your time booked in. This is strictly a free gift for you. I love Dr. Edith Eger. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she was a survivor of the Holocaust, and she's written a few books. And Brene Brown was interviewing her one day, and I listened into the podcast, and she said, love is a 4-letter word spelled Time. When we give people our time, we give them our love. And I believe this is part of my duty and service to the world. And I also, as an extra bonus, okay, this is for spiritual entrepreneurs. And I also offer a 3-day business workshop called Ignite Your Business. I've got 3 passes, only 3. You've got to reach out to Cherise, type comment, and I will do some follow up with you. I'll give you the details of that. It runs June 19th to 21st. It's online, and it is a power pack 3 days to help you get really anchored into your business, whether you're launching, whether you're relaunching, maybe you're just new, getting your feet wet a little bit. Doesn't matter. It's a powerful 3 days. And so I've got 3 passes that I'm giving out for that as well. So that is there for you. I love being able to share with the world. So thank you so much for having me spend time with all of you. It has been such a joy for me. I hope you've enjoyed the storytelling and the golden nuggets. I hope you can take with you and apply them right away. Wake up with God. Remind yourself God is waking up with you in the morning. Remembering that God is your supply, divine is your supply, and you are a co-creator. Take those golden nuggets with you. And I send you all my love and blessings on this beautiful day. Thanks everyone for tuning in.